So we'll start off with Celebrate Sunflowers. It also comes with coordinating dies, which I will use a little bit of in a minute, but I'll just concentrate on stamping. And we're going back to basics basically with this, and start off with a little piece of white card and a yellow ink pad. This is Bumblebee, and I've mounted my stamp, the big one, the big sunflower, on here already. And all I'm going to do is, because it's a big stamp and it's actually wider than the ink pad, I tend to put the stamp flat on the table and take my ink to the stamp instead of the other way around. Just find that works easier. I'm probably knocking the thing a bit there. And then I'm going to stamp a couple of these. That's hasn't stamped very well, so this is where you would bring in. So I've got this foam pad. If you don't have one of those, then a magazine might do. It's just something with a little bit of give, rather than a really solid table. With these big stamps, to get a really good stamp into the centre sometimes, you often need something with a bit of give. I've done it with a magazine instead, but you can see that's much better. It's got the inside of it now. And one more here. And just have a sentiment. I'll just do thanks a bunch, and I've got a black ink pad as well. And we'll just stamp that in the centre. You can just mount that onto a card base. So I'll just get that stuck down. I'm using my Tombow liquid glue. That's what I use for pretty much everything. Don't need a lot. It's really, really sticky. And that's simple but effective card. Do one that's a little bit more stepped up, I think. So we'll start with a card base again, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to stamp actually on yellow on yellow. And put some background on, and it looks actually really effective. It's almost like a watermark effect. And I've got a little piece of card. This, I think it's 5.5 by 8.5, and what am I going to stamp on there? So I'm going to clean this big stamp off. I've got my chamois that I use now for cleaning my stamps. Baby wipes are really good as well, but I don't know about you. I'm just starting to not buy so many disposable things, so I don't use baby wipes anymore. Going to get some black ink on there. Don't need all of it, because I'm just going to put a little bit in the corner. And I think the contrast between the black and the yellow looks quite good. It's like a scalloped edged rectangle, and I've cut that to fit exactly inside there, so you get quite a nice little border. So I might put that on with foam pads actually. So you've got that sort of raised up. Jack, I've just seen shimmy chamois. The chamois is, so it's like a spongy thing, this is what it's supposed to look like when it's new. The Simply Chamois. It's like it's a cloth, spongy cloth, and you wet it so it's damp, and this looks terrible, but none of that ink comes off onto your stamps. I'll show you. Oh, it does, because I've been using it. But basically you can just squeeze, rinse it out with water and squeeze it out after you've been using it. So it you can just clean off your stamps on it, gets it really clean, and all the ink stays in the chamois. So it's a really cool little cleaning thing. I use it, so I cut it up as well for smaller stamps, and it's really good for cleaning your stamps that are mounted onto the you know, like a stamp positioning tool like the Misty or your Stamparatus. And it saves thousands of baby wipes, which is what I was going through in my classes and things. So I'll just pretend I didn't stick that on there, because I want to add a little bit of ribbon. And I'm not very good at tying ribbon around things, but I'm only doing a knot, I'm not doing a bow. So hopefully I'll manage it. A knot is so much easier. So like a double knot, and then I can get my scissors and just trim that off. Oh, I want to stamp a sentiment as well. Just to make it really awkward. I'm doing this in the wrong order, by the way. So you'd stamp your sentiment before you stuck it on. That would be more sensible. Let's just see if that works. Yeah, that's all right. Saved. Stick that on there. So there's an alternative layout. And we could get maybe a little bit more fancy this time. Let's do the same. Let's do the same with this one. See how this turns out. Because this stamp is so big, you don't really need to do too much with it. Kind of just does all the work for you, really, which is great, because you don't have to be able to draw, you don't have to be good at art, and that is one of the reasons why I love stamping so much. Actually, I'm going to go off and I'm just going to emboss this. Wood grain effect. I'm going to stick that on. And I'm going to mount this onto a piece of gold, just to be fancy. What I've done is already, I've stamped my sentiment and I've heat embossed it in gold. So I can put that on. But also die cut some of these little sprigs in gold. It comes from the die set that cuts out the sunflowers. So I can add those. So just add a little bit of glue. Stick them there. Put a little bit of sticky strip on. there. And yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that for now. Okay, we're going to use this little sunflower now. I'm going to stamp all over with the black ink pad to create a background. So just rotate the stamp round. I always go right off the edge to fill in gaps. So there's not much white space left. There you go. And oh, I've cut some bits out. So I thought these would quite nice. If I get some scrap paper, I'm going to cut these out. You can cut them out by hand, or you can use the dies. I'm just going to do it really quickly by hand, just so that I don't have to go over there and use my die machine. Get a sentiment on here. I'll use the thank you again because I always need thank you cards. Oh, this thank you is not from the sunflower set, by the way. It's from Peaceful Moments. So there's a happy birthday, a thank you, which is ones I use most often, but there are other ones as well that I use. Sympathy one's useful, and congratulations, thinking of you, and some other things. Very useful stamp set if you don't have greetings. And I'm actually going to add a little bit of colour to these with a sponge dauber. I can't find what I did with it. So I'm just taking my yellow, picking up a little bit of the ink and sponging. Build up the colour to make it more intense. And the good thing about this is you don't have to worry about staying in the lines because it's just quite rough and ready. Oh, happened to have one I did earlier. That's handy, isn't it? So I'll stick those down with the foam pads again. There's another one. The last one, I have actually done some die cutting for you. So I'll show you the dies anyway. So you get these ones that are the big sunflowers. So you can cut out your stamped image with that one, and then you overlay that with this really lovely intricate like lacy effect flower. Now you've got those, you see the sprigs there, and then that cuts out the small sunflower, some leaves, and the centre for sunflower. So I won't bother doing that for you now, but I've cut out these and some white leaves and the centre, and I'm gonna do some sponging just around the edge of this, just for a bit of added dimension, I suppose. Just like that, makes a bit of a difference. And card base I need. And I've got a plain piece that I'm just going to stick on the front just for an extra layer, but I wanted to add some texture on this, and I saw a card, and I'm really sorry I can't remember whose it is. If I remember, I'll post it on, but this is, I'm following a really similar design to a lady that I saw on her blog, and for the background I'm gonna do some splats. I do love a splatter, so take my black ink pad. I'm just gonna get some black ink on a block, and then get my water brush. It's got water in there, and I'm just gonna put one drop and get that mixed up to make a black ink. I'm going to move everything out of the way because it might be a bit messy, and then just take my finger and just tap it against my finger, load up the brush, and just get some splats. Another one of these scalloped rectangles. We'd probably leave this to dry a little bit normally, but let's not have this too wonky. And put that on there. It is a bit wonky. It's alright, I can move it. Put that on. And then do the sunflower, so I'll just layer that up. Oh, I've got a bit of ribbon as well. This one's really fancy, and this one's got all sorts on it. So put this. Need a bit of this. Sticky strip's really good for adding ribbon. Fold this little bit in half. And just have it so it's sticking out a little bit, and then I can add my sunflower on. This is I need to pop these bits out if I can be bothered. Let's just pop a few out, doesn't matter if some show, and then stick that on. Just a little bit of glue. Now this layer will match up to the bottom layer if you rotate it around enough times. Or it doesn't have to, and it looks good either way, so it doesn't really matter. I'm putting the centre on with a foam pad, and let's put that down there. My ribbon's covered up a little bit, so I'd do a slightly longer ribbon next time. And just put a couple of these leaves on, just a tiny little bit of glue. Tuck them in. And I've cut out this sentiment already. So the sentiment is, let's celebrate you, but I've just cut out let's and celebrate, and I'll just stick those on. So, something a bit different, but it's all using the same colours, so it forms quite a nice set. So you start off with the basics, the really simple ones, and then you can get more fancy as you get more confident with it, and you keep playing with it and all sorts of ideas come. So there's 5 cards, and I wanted to show you just a couple that I made, well, in my Facebook Live. Well, it would have been a couple of months ago. So the kind of only difference with these ones is that I've stamped in black and I've coloured using the stamping blends. So I've got 2 sets of the blends, the soft suede and the mango melody actually. And there's a bit green actually on there as well. I think that was old olive, or no, sorry, granny apple green on those. And I've just used the blends to colour in. So these were really quick. I did these, I think I did 6 cards altogether in my Facebook Live in half an hour, and I think I did most of the colouring in that time. Can't quite remember. I might have shortcutted a few things, but really quick to make and just so effective. Like even just that stamp on its own is gorgeous. So that's a really nice set actually. So I'm glad you picked that one. Oh, this is one I did. This was one of the monthly card classes a few months back. Might have been during summer. Might have been the August one actually. So that's an example of, they made 2 of these. That's an example of some of the cards we make in our monthly card class, which is usually the 3rd Tuesday of the month.